Good morning, everybody, and a very warm welcome to our latest industry roundtable event, exploring the current and future support, training and development needs for graduates in our new environment. Firstly, a huge thank you to you all for giving up your valuable time to come and join us this morning. There's an awful lot of familiar faces on the call, so a big hello to everybody that I and we already know. For anyone I've not met, my name's James Hooper. I'm the COO for DBL, and I've had the pleasure of working in the early careers space for about the last 4 years. If you haven't attended one of our industry masterclasses before, we've run these sessions about quarterly in the UK, Australia, and Singapore for around the last 3 years. They're quite a key component of our commitment to helping and supporting the early career talent sector in general. And they also allow us to share our own research and perspectives on the global and the local trends that we see from working with so many amazing employers and brands that we have over the last 15 years of DBL's history. We've recently run some events on really quite critical people and culture topics lately, including building cultures of belonging and promoting well-being. If anybody has not seen or missed those, or was curious about any other past events, please do reach out. I'd be very happy to meet with anybody to talk about them. So today we're running a bit more of a panel style event to let people hear a little bit less from us and a little bit more from a range of different personal and organizational perspectives. And we're being very, very kindly joined today by 4 graduates and an employer from companies including Allianz, BHP, RSM, Glencore, and Xero. So Josh, I'll just get you to pop to the agenda slide just a moment, if that's okay. We're going to have a short welcome and introduction from Josh soon to set the scene for us today. We'll follow that with our graduate panel to let everybody hear from the young professionals themselves, and then a chat with Siobhan at Xero to take a look at an employer's perspective. And we'll be aiming to wrap up around the 9:30, 9:45 time. So just before I hand over to Josh to kick us off, we would love today to be a relaxed and comfortable, but also an engaged and a connected experience. So I'd love to ask everyone to feel, please, comfortable to have your videos on, to join the conversation. It helps everybody to be able to see each other and feel like we're a part of the discussion. Please obviously keep yourselves on mute just for everyone's benefit from background noise. And please also do pop your questions in the chat box. There are a few questions that we'll love to ask the panel, but we'd love to get questions from you. Josh will be trying to stop along the way and check in with me to see what we can throw in and ask. And it really helps everybody else on the call to see what questions are going to be asked, so that we can try and work through as much as we can. So that's all from me. I think given a shorter time today, I'd love to get us started. So Josh, are you comfortable for me to throw over to you and kick us off?
I sure am.
Brilliant.
So good morning, everybody. My name is Josh Mackenzie. If we have not met before, or if you have met and you forgot, that's okay. Josh Mackenzie, founder at Development Beyond Learning. I am coming to you not from a dark cave. I am coming to you just short of midnight in the United Kingdom. And when the team said, Josh, are you sure you want to run? Like, we run lots of these sessions all throughout the year. Are you sure you want to run this one? It's at a stupid time of night. I say, remember, guys and girls, this is not the first time I've done this since the pandemic. And I get particularly excited by certain topics. Maybe excited isn't the word when it comes to well-being, because I think arguably this is the challenge of our time. In the early talent industry. And so I have volunteered to be part of this morning's discussion and host it, partly because being someone who's so just passionate about the development of young people and the impact on the world that can have at scale. I am equally passionate about the challenges young people face to do with their well-being, because let's face it, it's hard, and it is still not probably getting enough of a spotlight on it in the corporate world, and maybe not in the early talent industry around the world as well. And also, if I can, to try and bring some perspective from outside Australia as well. For those of you who are new, welcome. Development Beyond Learning, we provide live and virtual training and development for your future workforce. Our heritage is in early career talent development. In Australia, we're an Australian business, but also across Asia, the UK, Europe, and a little bit in North America as well. Everything we do is backed up by research, psychology, behavioral science, because we're really passionate about helping people actually develop and change habits and behaviors through the application of skills and knowledge, particular focus on human or soft skills, and those skills that people need when they transition from university to work for the first time, because we know that that's a pretty big deal as a transition to make. Australian business, as I said, with a really passionate, diverse team in London, Singapore, and Sydney, and this year been picking up some great awards around the world for our work too. But most importantly, that's all the how stuff. The why is what we get really pumped up about, and that's because we're on a mission to support 1 million young people each year by 2025. That's what we are getting up in the morning and even staying up late at night to do. In fact, my wife made a comment just before she went to bed. She said, remind me what the panel discussion is about. And I said, oh, it's about well-being. And she said, and you're staying up until 1 a.m. to run a panel on well-being. Interesting. I said, thank you. That's just the sorts of comments we give each other, isn't it? Just to bring things back down to earth. I said, yeah, but what you don't know is when you get up to take the kids to school in the morning, I am going to be asleep. And the team know that I'll be sleeping in the morning as well. Also, this is too important a topic to ignore, and particularly right now, given the landscape in Australia. I feel for those who are in extended lockdown. I share your pain. I have real lived experience in that. I think we spent around about 9 whole months legally unable to leave our homes across different periods over the last 12 or 18 months. I know it's hard. It sucks. So let's build that into today's discussion as well. And even if you're not in lockdown, the world is not normal. It's not easy to visit relatives across state borders. It's not easy to plan ahead when you don't know what is around the corner in terms of restrictions or snap lockdowns or whatever it might be. Maybe you have family overseas who you haven't been able to see for a year and a half or more, depending on the last time you saw them before that. So I think it's really important to recognize that the pandemic continues to not be democratic, fair, reasonable, or consistent in how it impacts people's lives. And hard is hard. Hard is not something to compare. Everybody's challenges are big challenges to them, and that's okay. And it's these things that impact our well-being as well. And whatever the transition looks like ahead, I guess it's still going to be a transition. You probably all know the UK, where I'm coming in from tonight, is open. I can tell you it's open, but it is far from normal. It is not normal. It's just open. You can move around and more or less do whatever you want to do, but it is far from normal. It's a very weird place and world to live in. I actually live up in a little coastal town in Scotland. I just got home from London tonight, where I was down with the team. London is back in business. It's teeming with people, which is really great to see. But still, it's not normal in terms of the way that businesses operate. You step into one cafe to get a coffee and realize that cafe is choosing to wear masks and socially distance, but the cafe you went to a few hours ago isn't. And so you're constantly trying to adapt to the rules and regulations that people are now choosing or not choosing to apply. Just as one example, it's also not very fun to sit on a plane for an hour and a half with a mask covered up over your face, wearing glasses which fog up consistently. So I guess the point, my point there is that whatever we transition to in Australia, it is going to be a transition, and the challenge of well-being with young people has been around for some time. This is not new. However, COVID has made it harder. It has made that transition to work for young people harder than it was. And so there are certain things that we need to be doing to support our people in that. Committed and passionate about this topic so much are we, that over the last 12 months, we've been undertaking a lot of research, and particularly through, I think, sort of February, March, April, May this year, invested a lot of money and a lot of our team's time in formulating our own research, which we launched in get your mouth around this, World Wellbeing Week. If you missed it, too late, it was in June. And we launched the research there in conjunction with Chapman CG and Thrive HR Exchange around the world, where we began to share that research. Thank you for those of you on this session who came to that. They were great little events, and have since finished collating the research and formulated that into a nearly just short of 40-page white paper with lots of colorful graphs and information, which I know a bunch of you have seen as well. And that is, I guess, really the theme of today, is promoting well-being in the hybrid future of work. What we found in that research as some snapshots, here's all the good stuff about the research I've already covered. What we found in that research, though, were some pretty big themes. And what we'll be doing today is, as James said, is getting some graduate voice perspective on these in terms of what has been their lived experience. And what do they see sort of moving forward, but also over the top of that, keeping in mind that, in our research at least, that some pretty big gaps are forming when it comes to well-being. There are some pretty big gaps in three main groups. There is a gap in well-being between people who are led and leaders, which is really, really interesting in terms of how they rate their well-being and how they consider their well-being comparatively. The led feel like they are generally worse off, and leaders feel like they are generally I'm not going to say they're okay, but they rate their well-being higher than those who are being led. I think that's a really interesting distinction to look at in a workforce, and particularly for early talent, given they are 99% all led. It's a bit of a red flag. The second one is there's a big gap between women and men. Women rate their sense of well-being lower than men. Men are certainly not saying, oh, I'm fine, my well-being's fantastic. That's not coming through, but they do not rate their well-being in those two groups, do not rate their well-being in the same way for various reasons. We are releasing, I believe, or looking to release future sort of either panel or roundtable discussions about well-being and gender, because it comes through the research. It's actually a pretty big deal. And then the third gap is actually between early career talent and established talent, and it is this gap, if you like, or this context in which we would like to talk about this morning, which is all around the support, training and development needs for current and future graduate cohorts. So we have four with us today, and a huge thank you to the four of you for joining and giving up some time this morning. We've got Beck from Allianz, who is in Sydney. We've got Claudio from BHP, who is in Adelaide. Let me get all these right. Taylor from RSM, who is in Melbourne, and John from Glencore, who I believe is in Brisbane. Did I get those right? I think I got those right. And so thanks, Jim, for the thumbs up. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take off the share, and I'm just going to spotlight our four guests so that you can easily see who we are who we are talking to. Where are you, Beck? There you are. Add spotlight, Claudia, and I'm looking for John. Where's John? There you are. All right. Okay. Great. I'm going to spotlight myself as well. That's weird. Okay. So we're going to kick off. Again, thank you each for joining. In fact, one of the reasons I'm and that the team in development beyond learning, realized this was such an issue and something that we need to take control of for ourselves. We are responsible for our own well-being ultimately. And you come from you work for 4 very, very good graduate and well-known graduate employers as well, who I'm sure are doing their best for you. But some of our research said that when we look at early talent in the future workforce, only 27% feel hopeful about the future at the moment, or over the last sort of 6 to 12 months, and 33% feel discouraged or concerned. And the research sort of suggested that this is the 18 to 24s is one of the hardest hit groups on the well-being spectrum from the pandemic. So I guess first things first, how are you all doing? And kind of how does that tally up? How does that tally up from you? Now, you don't have to say, yeah, I'm good, thanks. If you're feeling good, say, yeah, good, thanks. If you're not feeling good, tell us. It's like we're all human. Well-being is a very topical discussion. To be frank, until some really great meetings I had in London this week, I was having a pretty crap week and wasn't feeling too hot about things at the moment myself. I've had a pretty up and down week, and so it's okay. And it's important to have that have that context, I guess. So Beck, what about you? How are you doing, and how does this sort of all tally up for you?
This morning I am feeling a bit fatigued coming into the back end of the week, and I've noticed that the trend for me, particularly at the moment, is after a weekend I'm really strong and productive and in a very good mood, good energy, and then sort of by Wednesday it really starts to drop off, and I do find it a bit harder to sort of kick myself on and say, okay, we've got to get to work and get into the zone. But yeah, I think fatigue is probably the word for how I am this morning.
Right. And so would you, again, and how does the idea that this sort of age group has been fairly hard hit by the pandemic in terms of well-being? I mean, how does that resonate with you? Do you agree, disagree?
Yeah, definitely. I think we're missing some of the most exciting and important milestones, and we're not getting to celebrate some of the things that really should be celebrated. So I graduated 18 months ago. I have not had a ceremony. I received an electronic certificate and cheersed myself at home. And at the moment, there's no real potential for a ceremony. So, that's one thing. I started a new job. All my friends started new jobs. Have we gotten to be able to get together and celebrate that again? No. So I think there's, you're still achieving things and you're still doing things, but some of the excitement around those things is definitely diminished.
Yeah. All right. Great observations. John, how are you going?
Yeah, I'm traveling well. I'm sort of a bit fatigued. I'm back in Brisbane with a shoulder injury, so I'm struggling to get a good night's sleep most nights. It's the shoulder I sleep on, but other than that, I agree with what Beck said in regards to it's the years of our life where we're meant to sort of be celebrating milestones, and we're just not being able to do that. I know when we had our graduate week down in Singleton, we had 2 new starters that weren't allowed into the event because they came from a COVID hotspot. Now, if that was me, that'd be pretty rough having to tune into everything through Zoom because it's not the same as an in-person experience. So yeah, that's where I just see that it sort of hits harder for younger people, given that we're trying to start a new career and a lot of the face-to-face interactions aren't there.
Got you. You didn't hurt your shoulder playing rugby by any chance, did you? I'm just taking some
Yeah.
cues. Oh, you did. Okay. No sympathy. Just kidding. I know you've got a few shooting to physio straight after this, so I hope it gets better soon. Taylor, how are you going?
Look, I'm going well. I think like Beck and John, we're all a bit fatigued at the moment. Me personally being in Melbourne, probably going on nearly 300 days of lockdown over the past 18 to 24 months. So it's getting fatigued that way, just being at home all the time, not being able to interact with people. But I can't ignore the fact that I'm grateful for where I am right now. I graduated in lockdown. I was lucky enough to have employment last year where people didn't. And I also came from the sector that was working, which was pharmacy. So even though it was retail, I feel like I got to see the other side of the pandemic, which was the working where no one wasn't trying to just, be a smile for someone when they came in to just get some shopping when they haven't seen anybody, can't even see their family. So found that really good. And then, yeah, really grateful to get this job that I'm in now, start my career, get into the field that I studied for. So, yeah, I think like Beck and John said, there's fatigue, but there's also grateful to be where I am right now. So, yeah.
That is so, what a great point. That is so good to hear. Claudio, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well. I definitely resonate with what John and Beck were saying. I think starting the graduate program, I started beginning of 2020. So just before the pandemic hit, and then I think it was about 2 weeks later it hit, and we'd made a bit of connection with the graduate cohort, but then after that, just hardly saw anyone. Everyone was separated. And you just lose that interpersonal connection. You lose connection with your team and other graduates. So I found that, yeah, that's definitely really difficult. And it's, yeah, you got to really put yourself out there to build up those connections once you can. Once you're out of lockdown, you're able to go out and meet people. But yeah, that definitely puts a stunt in those those connections with your fellow team members.
Yeah, good point. And when you think about when you each think about your sort of overall sense of well-being in the context of remote working or hybrid working, and particularly for you, Claudio, and you, John, you're at Glencore, which is another mining company, and depending on where you're posted, remote working's been a thing forever, right? You move away from your family, you could be posted in a small mining town, you might as well be in lockdown. I've been to lots of mining towns in Australia. I mean that nicely. It's not what you're used to. You are disconnected. And so in your own unique context, if you like, considering your well-being, considering remote working, whatever that means, what are some of the impacts you think that's had on how you've made that transition? And I ask this question because a lot of the research, not just our own, but a lot of the research around the world suggests, in fact, in the UK, the CIPD, which is the main sort of professional learning body and HR body in the HR, has been highlighting the sort of widening equality gap, professional equality. I'm talking about professional equality gap between those who can comfortably work from home, for example, and those who cannot. And considering that you may be either at your parents or carers or working from family homes, or you may have moved out and be sharing a home with 2 or 3 other flatmates who have also started grad programs. How has that transition in a remote working context impacted in your well-being?
I've sort of found it not easy, but quite comfortable moving out there. I, from a young age, wanted to move sort of rural. And I just found, playing footy out there and getting involved with as much of the community life as possible, helped me sort of settle in and meet new people. It does help. Glencore put us in a grad house together. So living with sort of anywhere from 4 to 7 other young people helps make you feel quite comfortable and get into that working lifestyle pretty easy.
Right. Taylor, Claudio, Beck, what have you got to add?
Yeah, I definitely struggled with the remote working at the beginning of the pandemic, especially with a lot of graduates just working from home. I was one of the few that went up, and I guess just being alone up there in a new place, very isolated, it was definitely very challenging. I think the way to get through is just make those connections, try and meet people that resonate with yourself. Otherwise, it's just, yeah, that's the main way to get through that kind of period.
Beck or Taylor, anything to add?
I think in some ways it's been really positive and surprisingly positive, and then in other ways it's been surprisingly challenging. So before the pandemic, I lived in Western Sydney, and it would take me, when we were in the office, a good hour to an hour and a half to get in. So now I have that extra time back in my day to invest in myself however I feel like it. At the moment, that's exercise. But I now live alone, and in my 5K, which is currently the restrictions that we have in Sydney, I only have two people. So as much as everyone has tried to keep in touch and to keep in contact, it's the loneliness of being at home alone for very extended periods of time, as well as that sort of the challenging part. But it's been nice to have some more control over my routine and what I can do with my extra time.
Yeah. Interesting. Taylor?
Just to add on the points, I haven't moved for work like John and Claudio, but like Beck, I do live far from my city office. So yeah, definitely save time in the morning and after work just traveling, which is good to then, like you said, invest in yourself. I think being able to study online last year has been a bit beneficial in the then transition to working from home, because I was sort of already used to that, having to take that sort of self-initiative to learn and to reach out if I need to, because I was already in an environment where if I needed help, I couldn't just turn next to me and be like, hey, can you help me with this? There had to be that reaching out, find the email address, find the number, connect with someone on Facebook that's in your group or class, just to take that initiative. So I think I've been able to sort of benefit in that way. But again, like the others mentioned, you can't ignore the challenges of being alone and going through this experience all by yourself. It's comforting to know that there's other grads doing it with you, but to not be going through it physically together is a struggle, because you just don't have that bond,
Yeah. Interestingly, we're going to move on to your development and your training and development and some of the things you've seen that you've really liked or you'd like more of or less of. And I think what's really interesting about a time like this is that we all want to grow and develop. I've always said that no one wakes up in the morning wanting to be less than they were the day before. We all have this inherent need to grow. I think it's in our DNA as human beings. However, you don't grow in when things are comfortable. You plateau. You actually grow in times of discomfort, because with discomfort comes challenge, and that's where the mental and emotional and other muscles, so to speak, need to grow. That's where you learn new skills and build life experience and the like. So we actually need discomfort in order to grow, and the need for growth is in our DNA. So actually we need discomfort. We need challenging times, basically. And I think you are a generation of grads who long-term will have a head start. And I know that sounds a big sort of, might sound a big sort of idea at first, but there are disadvantages to being in your shoes during a pandemic. Long term, there are so many advantages, particularly being able to adapt, build relationships remotely, be self-motivated, find purpose in your work when you're feeling really down. Like all of these muscles that you are building now at the age of 21, 22, 23, 24 are going to pay in dividends over the next 10 years, 20 years, and 30 years. And the grads 2 years ago didn't get it. And the grads 2 years from now might not get it either. And so I think this is I think the framing of this is really, really important for our well-being. So moving on to development, what have been your observations so far about your development and your development program, if you like, and maybe what would you like to see more of or less of, or what have you really liked or not liked? Anyone can jump in on that.
With my development, I feel like Glencore put a huge emphasis on, DBL for one, and then also if we're able to find training courses on our own that, fit what we do or will help advance us and develop, they're more than happy for us to apply, and they'll sort of, encourage that. Unfortunately, I had 3 courses I was looking at doing. Unfortunately, due to COVID, none of them actually went ahead. But my boss was more than happy to, send me on a bit of a junket, and if they had to come through with it.
Claudio, Beck, Taylor, go for it, Claudio.
Yeah, I definitely agree with John. Very similar experience. We've got the DBL training, which is fantastic, and we're encouraged to find training that would suit our development plan outside of that. We also had some other training organised as well, but due to COVID, unfortunately, it got cancelled. It coincided with those periods where we had lockdowns and limited numbers. But there have been other stuff organised as well. Some supervisor training to get leadership skills developed, and that kind of thing as well. But yeah, unfortunately, due to COVID, some of them have been cancelled.
Yeah. Okay. Beck?
Our grad cohort has hogged Allianz from DBL since our first session. We absolutely adore her. So that has been extremely valuable to all of us. But I think the other thing that Allianz has put a lot of emphasis on is everything that we do is quite practical. So we do a lot of lunch-and-learns, which we would love to have them in person. Unfortunately, all the ones that we've had lately have been online. But it's still about getting us that time to learn about different areas of the business that we haven't seen yet, to hear from leaders that have great career insights that we can learn from and connect us with a wider range of people than normal, but also then step back into our day-to-day role and go, oh, I've learned something new from that and I can come in and apply it here. And having our managers support to follow up on those things and go, well, how was that session? What did you come away with? Is there something that I can implement in our day-to-day that you think would be cool based off what you've done? So I think the practical element has been something that, regardless of whether it's in person or online, has been super helpful and has made it feel rewarding and valuable for us.
There's a just building on that. There's a really good question in here from Jay. Thanks for posting it. Have your employers done, like, thinking about your development and your support? I'm going to loop back to a few of you commented on fatigue, as a particular word and feeling. Have your employers done anything practical, asked Jay, or helpful to support the fatigue and isolation that you're experiencing? So either built into your development program or as sort of one-off interventions or anything, or whatever. Tell us about it.
So Allianz has given its global employee base an Allianz staff for the level of work and commitment that happened last year. So we got an additional day of leave to use whenever we liked, however we liked. But we're also encouraged to use our leave arrangement however we see fit. And we've got those one-on-ones with our managers regularly to say, like, where are you at the moment? Do you need to take a break and book in some leave? We have study leave for when we're doing exams and things like that. And then every week we're on a Zoom call catching up. and messaging each other and having as close to a FaceTime as we can. And it's just an open forum. It's not based about work. It's just everyone jump in the room and let's just have a chat about whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. It's just for you to have that time building those relationships and seeing one another and checking in.
Right. Fantastic.
Just to build on that as well, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
So yeah, like Beck said, at RSM we have like our weekly team catch-ups and stuff like that. The company also has a social club, which is really good. So every month there's an activity organized that everybody can come along to. We happen to have one tonight, which is a grand final eve trivia night. So everyone can jump online, and we're going to have a trivia night. Next month, we're having a wine and cheese tasting with somebody guiding us through from Italy via Zoom. So there's a lot of sort of informal settings where we can just catch up and get to know each other outside of the work environment, which is really good. I work in audit, which is notably a very busy time during financial year. So on the off seasons, they've introduced 9-day fortnights as well, just for us to recharge. So we work 5 days one week for the next week, and then we get that Friday off just to have a long weekend recharge, which is just really good for mental health, just to reset and then regroup and come back into another good, strong 2 weeks, and then, yeah, another break again. So, yeah,
Gotcha.
Really good.
Gotcha. And then again, thinking is a great question here from Anna's work iPhones, very clever iPhone. That around, so again, thinking in the context of your development and the support, and particularly focused on well-being, what have been some, we've talked about some of the employer-led things that you've really liked in your development, your support program. Has there been anything that was really well intended but didn't land, or wasn't actually that hasn't been that valuable to you? It's a really good question, Anna. Thanks for asking it.
For me personally, I've gotten value from all the training and stuff that's been put forward. I think it's just about what you can get out of it. There's always value in anything. It's just, I think it's up to you what you can find in those courses. Maybe they're not the best. There's always better courses and that kind of thing. But yeah, it's just the amount of value you can find and draw out for yourself.
And what about more broadly? What about more broadly in terms of maybe events that were run, or initiatives that were put forward, or benefits that were given? Was there been anything that sort of really well intended, but when you did it or took it up or experienced it, you thought, yeah, that wasn't that great? You're allowed to say, like, everyone is navigating this pandemic for the first time, your employers included, and so learning from what maybe wasn't great is also really, really useful to hear.
I don't know that it's necessarily not useful. I think the challenge is sometimes there's so much on offer that you want to participate in and you want to be involved in, but you can't do it all. And it becomes stressful trying to fit in the extra things that are meant to make you feel better. So we have like yoga and mindfulness sessions, and all of that is fantastic. And they are great when you have time to attend them. But if you were to attend every single thing that was on offer and still try to do all of your normal day-to-day work, I think by the end of it, you would have negated the positive impact of attending the sessions, because you'd be so exhausted from just cramming your schedule so full of stuff. So the rest is productive too.
Yeah, what a great problem to have, and almost in this context, the definition of a first world problem. Stop doing so much for us. But too much choice. I mean, there's behavioral science behind too much choice. Actually, too much choices actually can be paralyzing. The cognitive overload of it, and the paralysis from too much choice can actually be more negative than the positive that could be achieved if there are actually just fewer things that are easier to do. What about you, Taylor or John? Anything to add on? Anything to add there?
No, I think Beck sort of summed it up. When there's just too much on offer, you don't always get to take out as much information as you would, but nothing I've been a part of hasn't really landed. It's all sort of, you find your bits and bobs out of what you need and you take what you need from it. So yeah, I haven't had anything hasn't landed properly.
Great. Well, I might just turn now to the context of managers, and managers have had such a challenging time during the pandemic. I mean, management roles are hard anyway, because you've got people above you who need stuff, you've got people below you who need stuff, you've got your peers and your stakeholders who need stuff. They are very much the hub of the spoke of an organization, and then you throw a pandemic into that, make people work from home or at home in the office, then you've got grads starting in your team. Like, this has been hard for managers. They've also got their own challenges. Their well-being matters as well. It has not been an easy job. What have been some things that you have seen managers do to really help your well-being? And then maybe what are some things some managers have done that you've seen? You don't have to name names, doesn't even have to be your manager, you've just heard about, maybe that, yes, those things that have really helped your well-being, your sense of well-being, and maybe some things that have not helped your sense of well-being. What observations have you got there?
My manager, he from the get-go, coming from Brisbane, moving out to Springsure, a small little mining town, he knows the challenges that come with that. So he's made it well and truly clear that if we are struggling, we do put the work in, we do the hours that are required, or well and truly above the hours that are required. He's happy for us to have a mental health day if we need to have a long weekend and go home and see family, see partners and stuff like that. Or if we are starting to get burnt out coming towards the end of the week, he lets us have a little bit of a late start. May only be an hour or so, but that hour does make a bit of a difference. Sleeping in or things like that. That's really helps your well-being, and not burning out too early.
Interesting. Taylor, Claudia, Beck, and anything to add there? What have you seen that has been good, or maybe things that have not been good for your well-being?
I'm very lucky. I haven't had any micromanagers, which has given me the space to learn how to manage myself and how to succeed. But I've also had, my current manager is fantastic at this. We do a team meeting at the start of the week and a team meeting at the end of the week. And it's, what have we got on? Great. At the end of the week, it's what did we achieve? Fantastic. So there's constantly a sense of, even if it's been a really up and down week, we've made some progress. But we also then have that one-on-one. And she was really clear for me when I first started in this team, which was not all that long ago, really. Those meetings are for whatever I need them to be. If that is that they have to be task-oriented because I'm struggling with something and we need to work through it, fine, that's great. If it's that I've come across a situation and I'm looking for some professional guidance or some career advice, that's awesome too. If I just want to have some social time with her, that's also fine. There's no sort of set rule for what that meeting is, and it's just about what I'm needing at the time. And I found that it's given me the sense of I can be vulnerable here and say how I'm really feeling. And it's also made that time incredibly productive because I feel like I'm always getting something out of it because I'm going into it with what I need. And just having her respect that that's where I'm at and meeting me in that place has been like amazing. It's been exactly what I've needed.
I love the simplicity of that. It's you have time with your manager once a week or however often, and it's personalized in the sense of half an hour, and it is literally whatever you need. There is no agenda. That's really, really powerful. Claudio, Taylor, what have you got to add?
I think from my end, it's been a learning experience for both myself and my manager. when I was hired at the start of this year, my manager also had just become a manager. So it was just him and I on the team. So he was learning to have a team under him and like know what his responsibility is, as much as I was learning to be the team player, you know, like how can I help this, that. And now our team's grown to probably 6 or 7 of us now. And I can just see from when it was the 2 of us to the group of us, how far we both come in like that relationship of manager and team member to just friends as well, which is really good. I think we've both learned off each other how to lead and be led as well, which has been really nice. And he's from overseas also, which is, he's from the UK. So it's been good to just have that different experience and different take on things. Yeah, I think for me, it's just been a 2-way learning curve with my manager.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes, I think it's sometimes that those types of things that can really make a difference. At DBL, for instance, one of the benefits of working at DBL is that you are free at 3 every second Friday, and that's been introduced since the pandemic, and it goes in everyone in the company. It's in their diary every second Friday at 3 o'clock. It's just blocked out, and it says something like, go and do whatever you want. Basically, you are free at 3. I found that really interesting, and this is more for the employers in the room tonight. I found that really interesting because as the founder, we've always had a fairly flexible working sort of culture, and I always presumed that people knew that if they had something they wanted to go and do, they could go and do it. It's not, you know, like we're all adults and people work very hard and you sort of manage your time. But sometimes what people need, and I think grads, early talent, managers are all the same in this sense, we're all human beings, is actually permission, explicit permission to know that it's safe. Professionally safe, psychologically safe, culturally safe, to go and do that thing at that time. And so, yeah, we introduced something called Free at 3, which has been hugely popular, and I think is a good example of something simple that can be done to help people's well-being. I'm going to wrap up the graduate element of this, because I've got Siobhan in the wings, and the panel element. Sorry, I've got Siobhan from Xero in the wings, waiting to talk and give an employer perspective. Thank you to everyone in the room tonight for your questions, and we haven't got through all of them. I know we got through. I think we got through 3 or 4 of them there. But I mean, finally, from you, Beck, Claudio, John, Taylor, have you got anything further you'd like to add? I guess. No? Excellent. All right. Well, we really appreciate you giving up your time. John, you get yourself to the physio. I hope your shoulder gets better soon. And Taylor, Claudio, Beck, thank you also for joining us. I'm going to unspotlight you now, so you will disappear from everyone's screen. Thanks again for joining. You are very welcome to stay. Please do. Remove spotlight. John, all the best. Let me bring you in, Siobhan, and we can have a lovely conversation. There you are. Found you. All right. So everyone, we've got. We're going to move on to the employer perspective about well-being here. But James, just as I'm transitioning, I'm going to throw back to you. Were there any other questions in the chat room that we might be able to answer, or that maybe we could kick off with Siobhan with? What did I miss?
You pulled out the goodies. There was a good one from Eleanor around, in hindsight, people's top tips for coming into an organization and making connections. It'd be great to hear from Siobhan whether she's had any of that feedback from her graduates. And we actually covered quite a lot of the others, all around connectivity, connecting remotely. and any experience around virtual development, virtual connectivity to enhance that as much as possible.
Sure. Great. Thank you. Well, I'm sure that's going to come out in our chat, Siobhan. So, I mean, why don't we thank you for joining us. So for everyone else in the room, Siobhan's a graduate experience manager at Xero, based in lovely Wellington. I can say we run our business on Xero. Siobhan, I just want to get that in.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so that's great. So I guess first of all, reflecting on that discussion with the panel just now, what were the sort of standout insights or reflections for you from what the guys and girls said?
Yeah, so thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate the time. Just some really, really good stuff coming out on the panel there. Actually, just made me feel a little bit better, because you know how you kind of go, oh, you know, I have my opinions on this, but I'm very coloured by the environment that I'm in. So good to have some more wide-ranging feedback there from the grads. Thank you so much for sharing. I think that thing about fatigue and not celebrating milestones, that is definitely something to spotlight on. We've definitely had some feedback around that pre-boarding and how important pre-boarding is for the incoming grads. So I'll talk about that in a minute. And then also, you know, for the current grads, finding the things that are useful and helpful, and kind of steering away from the things that are, you know, well meant but not helpful. I thought that was a great call out from whoever put that little comment on there. I thought that was a really good one, because you try and think up all these things that will help, and got to get that fine line balance between doing too many things and finding the right things and the helpful things.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of observations on this year's cohort, and definitely from an employer perspective, some sort of key themes have been really standing out to me. I think, as we will all be doing as grad managers and grad program leads, we need to look really closely and really understand who our grads are. What do we know about them? What are their needs? And if we have that insight and we know really closely what our program can offer, we can create a really good profile match at that recruitment stage and make sure that the grads that we hire are really well set up for success. And obviously a significant chunk of our target pool, talent pool now, is Gen Z. So one of the key themes I'm most interested in or focusing on at the moment is that they are faced with some significant unmet expectations, and that is the theme that's sort of coming through from those grads that we've just heard from. They expected a strong economy with very low unemployment. What they've got is the opposite. They're vulnerable to job loss now, and as a result, they're facing a lot of career uncertainty. So what I've seen as a result is two quite key behaviours in the recruitment side, or the funnel for incoming 2022 grads. One is a huge increase in job-related research, and it's at a level of detail that I actually haven't seen before. And that's reflected in things like event attendance being significantly up, and also campaign analytics. If anybody's keeping track of their campaign analytics over time, that's quite an interesting one. We are, and we're seeing massive increase there. Also a huge increase in the number of applications that we've received. And I think some of this is anxiety driven. But I also have a suspicion, and I'm keen to hear if anybody else thinks this too, that there's a section of that 2020 cohort that couldn't find roles. And so they went back and did a further year of study, either an honours or a master's or whatever it may have been. And maybe now they're joining the 2021 cohort searching for roles. So maybe that is also impacting the significant increase in applications that we're seeing now as well.
Interesting. That's a really interesting point around unmet expectations. In previous sort of cycles in the early talent industry, there's often unmet expectations when there is a perceived shortage of graduates, and employers are competing really hard and quite fiercely for graduates, and it comes across in marketing materials, and this is where you're going to get this amazing development program, and you're going to do 6 rotations, and then the development program turns out to be pretty average, and it's not 6, it's 4, and because things change, and then because the competition was so hard, you know, things got oversold. So we've seen that every sort of 4 or 5 years or whatever for lots of years. But the unmet expectations created by the COVID and the pandemic being more kind of external, aren't they? They're sort of more economic and social. So when when your 2020 grads turned up, and in the time that you've had them for the last, say, 6 months or so, 6 or 8 months, how has that affected their well-being, do you think? And what have been some of those challenges, and what support have they needed?
Yeah, so good question. I think very similar things to what the grad panel were just talking about. You know, you've missed those important opportunities to celebrate. You missed that face-to-face. We definitely find that, like, when we go back to having 50% or more people in the office, grads are the first ones to put their hands up to be in the office, because they just absolutely crave wanting to be with their teams. So we actually are quite careful around saying, hey, look, if you're going to take a grad on a rotation, please really think about how many days the various team members are going to be in the office, so that they actually have that connection and they are working with their team. I mean, full remote teams, and a lot of people at Xero have just, myself included, as you can see, have just been quite happy to shift to full remote, and it hasn't really impacted us. But it's a very, very different landscape for someone like myself who's got experience and down the track in my career to somebody who's just starting out. So as I say, you know, that face-to-face is really useful. We've also done a huge amount of work at Xero in terms of what successful, high-performing teams look like when they work remotely. So there's a huge amount of learning and sort of collaboration of knowledge that we've been doing in that space, and we're applying all of that to our grad cohorts as well. And then I think the third big thing for us there is that we've shifted to having dedicated people leads just for junior talent. So they are a junior talent people lead. The only people that report through to them are grads and interns. And so there's a real inherent focus on pastoral care and support and guidance and well-being for their role. We also are quite lucky in that we've just kicked off having an actual well-being team. So you've had Lucas Finch come and talk before for DBL, and he's the global head of well-being for us. So we're kicking off a whole new space in the HR kind of world for Xero specifically around well-being and being able to help our people do the best work of their lives.
And I think I'd peg Xero as probably one of the first to put a role like that in place, a global head of wellbeing. Certainly not the first now, and 18 months on, but I think there were pretty early movers in that sense. What has been your observation of graduates' resilience over the past 18 months, and how do you think that has sort of helped their well-being, or maybe been a barrier towards their well-being?
Yeah, so I think if we're thinking about new incoming cohorts, and even to some extent the cohort that we've currently got, this is something I had to think long and hard about. And I think one of the biggest concerns there for me is the potential for languishing or burnout. Now, languishing is something that we've been talking about quite a lot at Xero, and for those who haven't come across that term yet, it's that feeling of, you know what, I'm not quite depressed, but I'm definitely very meh, and I just am finding it hard to get motivated. So we've been talking a lot about languishing. So I think that there's a huge potential for this in our cohorts, and I believe this ties into another key theme that I'm seeing with Gen Z, is that they are very, very driven. So what we know about them is they're the most educated generation yet. They're much more risk adverse than previous generations have been. Finding their dream job is a huge goal for them. Financial security is a huge driver for them, and key for me, particularly in the space that I'm in at Xero, is that they're very, very anxious about technical obsolescence. So they put high value on being productive and building skills. I think that something else that's really important to call out here is that, you know, living through all of this pandemic, they've had to cope with a lot. So they have built a level of resilience that many previous cohorts may not have had. But I think that when you're driven and motivated in the ways that they are in the landscape that we're in, they might feel like getting the job or starting the job is crossing the finish line. And whereas our expectations of employers will be that this is their fresh and energized kind of start to their career. So that's a mismatch. And I think that's one that we have to be very careful about. I think that then leads into a higher risk of grads either languishing or burning out very early in the programs. And we need to mitigate from day one.
The point around languishing is really, really good, actually. There was a great article on this, and Kirsty, I can see that you are in the session. You posted a really great article on languishing on our internal team's wellbeing channel. If you've got a minute, would you mind going and finding it and posting it in the chat room? Thank you. Kelly, I think you posted it in Grad Hero Hub as well a couple of months ago as well, so we'll get that shared. I think it was a really insightful article to coin the term in the pandemic context. I can't remember who wrote it. So what at Xero, either more broadly or particularly with the graduates, what are some of the specific sort of support initiatives or benefits, if you like, or things that have been done to date?
Yeah, okay, so again, this is just my opinion, and my opinion is definitely not the be all and end all here. It's just the stuff that we're kind of looking at. But I think the simplest answer to this is to deliver what we promise them when we recruit them. Focus on their learning and development. That's a massive thing. We all know it's a big driver for them, and I know that we all go out there talking about how our programs deliver that. So how I approach this in the Xero program is I kind of split development into two tracks. One is their professional skills and one is their technical skills. So professional skills, I think, will be highly impactful on any program. And I know that there's a lot of programs that focus on this kind of stuff and all the DBL stuff that you guys do as well. But very, very much focused on what pastoral care do we provide on our programs? How do we help guide our grads through things like even the basics of goal setting? Making choices on rotations. Can we teach them about a growth mindset and help them get into that, like really get into that frame of mind? Help them start to develop really good career capital and a really good professional brand right from the beginning of their careers. Resilience and confidence, they're going to come to us with some measure of these things, but it's about crafting those to work in a professional environment. And I think as well now, building a really good professional toolkit around well-being, being able to self-monitor and spot and mitigate for both languishing and burnout will be key tools that they'll need to be able to perform at their best. And that's not just at a grad level, that's going to be something they take through the rest of their career. So I think if you take all of these things together, it's about creating the psychological safety to be able to recognize and ask for help and guide them through all this kind of stuff and help set them up to succeed in their careers.
John has actually just put a question back into the group, actually, which might be a good one for you, Siobhan. It just says, with a growing number of graduates working remotely, and you're saying some are full-time remote, just across your workforce in general, some aren't, etc. Have you noticed a development gap or difference technically or in terms of professional soft skills when you've thought about this and last year's graduates compared to previous cohorts?
It's a really good question. And actually the answer is no. We thought that having to do, particularly like one of the things that we've really hinged our program on is this massive induction that we've done in the past. So up until 2020, we've actually flown all grads from Australia and New Zealand down to Wellington and done a massive induction week together. And there's been social stuff and scavenger hunts and paddleboarding expeditions and all the cool things that we could do. But obviously with COVID, we just couldn't do it anymore. So we had to flip to a virtual induction, and we were really scared that we would have significant kind of impacts from that, because the cohort that we build when we do all that stuff together is this majorly supportive, well-connected, doesn't matter where you are from a location perspective, but you've got friends to reach out to. And we did build a number of social activities, or wherever we could, face-to-face activities in individual cities into the induction that we did. But we actually haven't seen any kind of negative outcome there. The cohort is still really well connected. They're supporting each other. There's not really any difference there from that perspective. And in terms of their technical competency, in terms of their performance in their roles, because we mandate that their their learning and development needs to cover both the professional skills and the technical skills. So we expect that they'll spend time learning, but we also expect that they'll spend time contributing to the team that they're in. So it's kind of 50-50 on both. We wondered whether we'd see any kind of dip in that, and we haven't. But then again, we've also changed to having dedicated people leads. This is the first time this year that we've had dedicated people leads for junior talent. So they've got all of the time to spend on them. And I think that was just a thing of scale for the program we needed to do, but came at exactly the right time for what we needed for the landscape that we're in with COVID.
Yeah, well-timed change, and I guess that really comes in to support the pastoral care, doesn't it? And what I think what I'm hearing from you most is, yes, professional, technical training, development, skills, knowledge, all that really important, but that really good ratio around the pastoral care and having an engaged group of people literally to support, talk, help, etc. is super important as well. On the development program now, and this will be the last question we'll probably have time for. What changes, if any, are you looking to make to your training and development program for your grads in the context of wellbeing?
I think there's a couple of things that we're looking to do. One is in that pre-boarding space, rolling out more pre-boarding events that focus on well-being and timing it before stressful periods. So we know that the pre-exam period is really stressful. We know that there's a lot of anxiety around just that right before they join us. So we're trying to put in some well-being events there. Look, whether it lands well, whether it's well received, whether it helps, we'll wait for the feedback there. I think obviously all grads get whatever well-being opportunities there are being offered to all Xero staff. There's no difference there. I actually attended, they ran a Build Your Best Day workshop, which I was in a couple of days ago. Wow, that was really cool. One of those workshops that you go to where you actually do the things afterwards. So that was really thought-provoking.
Yeah,
yeah, you would. I think a lot of focus on research of what people are going through at the moment and how to kind of help them through it. So yeah, and then chucking in a whole bunch of social stuff for them as well that they can select into or not. So stuff that we've done have been like photo competitions via Slack, like, okay, we're all in lockdown, but we're all getting out for a walk every day. What's the funniest thing that you see on your walk? Playing Scribblio, playing Gartic Phone, just fun stuff that people can self-select into if they want to. But at least it's there, and at least it's a connection, because I think there's really, everybody is struggling in different ways, right? The people who have got families are struggling because kids. The people who are living on their own are struggling because, that must be so lonely, and quite frankly, I'd give anything for a little bit of alone time sometimes. But we all have different struggles in this. So we're trying to really put forward options that would suit people in different kind of environments and different contexts.
That's why I got in the habit of running industry events at midnight, just quiet.
So quiet. Also, I'm asleep at midnight because I'm such a nana.
One last question from Lou. Any quick comments on how you prepared those dedicated people leaders to take on the junior talent? Was it training? Did you just happen to find people with natural ability and they didn't need any support to do it? Any quick comments on how you prepared them?
Yeah, we went for really experienced people leads, and then we kind of layered on top of that all sorts of training around junior talent. I do a lot of coaching and mentoring with them around the needs of junior talent, like this conversation that we're having right now. We'll be going through things like that together, really focusing on what, engaging them in the future development of the programs as well. But I think probably the biggest thing for us was that they are very experienced people leads, and they can bring a huge amount of knowledge from previous roles to the junior talent program.
Great. Thank you very much. Thanks for giving the time, Siobhan. I'm sure everyone really, really appreciates it. And thanks for being involved in one of our events again.
You're most welcome. Thanks for having me. Have a lovely day.
You too. And so just in the final 5 minutes or so, I would just like to bring your attention, if you haven't seen it, already. I'm going to switch screens here and show you this this wonderful document here. Whoa, not that one, this one. Sorry. So you should see the well-being white paper there. Jim, is that right? Can you give me a thumbs up?
Yep, got it.
Great. If you haven't gone and downloaded our white paper on well-being yet, you probably got an invitation to previously. If not, you'll be an invitation to download it after this event as well. Please go and do it. It's free. It's here. And there is all sorts of wonderful research, including the business case for well-being, outlines of the research that was done, and literally just pages and pages and pages, key findings, great statistics, nuggets, sound bites, anything you need to take to your exco or think about for new initiatives, budgets, etc., or just to fine-tune what you're already doing. There's some really great information here about the gaps I talked about at the beginning of this session around the leaders and led, women and men, established versus early talent. Just, I mean, look at that, it just keeps going and going and going. It's arguably the biggest piece of research we have ever undertaken, and it's on the website. And if you haven't seen it, go and see it, grab a copy, and knock yourself out. Don't knock yourself out, but make the most of it. To wrap up, I am going to quickly show you one last thing to wrap up, and then James, I'll throw it to you for any final comments about events and things. That was Siobhan. Thank you very much, Siobhan. That white paper and all the research was done around and produced the model of CALM, which stands for confidence, adaptability, links, and motivation. And these are some of the skills that we're seeing employers build into their development programs, particularly in pre-boarding and particularly at onboarding, to help graduates, but also managers. You'll see, you know, we're seeing training being done for managers around supporting well-being that you can see there as well. In fact, we know of one particular organization that's just rolled that module out for all of the managers who manage interns and graduates anywhere in the planet. They thought it was that sort of important. But all of these types of skills map back to giving your graduates confidence in a well-being sense, adaptability in a well-being sense, creating links and relationships, particularly around showing grads how to not just build connections, but build their own sense of belonging. Super important as your cohorts become more diverse, that they feel included, but they actually can take responsibility for that as well as promoting others' belonging. These are all new skills that we just wouldn't have talked about in graduate development land 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 12 years ago. Enhancing motivation, particularly looking at things like motivation, sense of purpose, self-management, again, supporting well-being for managers. Our team just went through this purpose session last week because we obviously believe in what we do. So there are real things being done, as you've heard from the graduates today, as you heard from Siobhan today, and when we look at the types of skills that are being delivered to graduates around the world now as well. And I think, James, that is about all from me. Finally, if you haven't signed up to DBL Shareables, that is our content worth sharing that we share every second month. You'll find a form for that on the website as well. But that's enough from me. James, back to you for any final comments.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Josh. Not a lot from me, just really appreciate everybody's time to join us. Thank you so much to the graduates and Siobhan for sharing your time and coming out and talking to so many of us that are so interested in this feedback and that have often so few opportunities to get it. So it's greatly appreciated. Everybody else, please keep an eye out. We'll send out some post-event follow-up. That will include a link to the white paper. It will include the link to the article that Kirsty shared for anyone that couldn't access it. We look forward to seeing anyone who is coming to the AAGE virtual conference in a few months. We'll be running a workshop there. We'd love to have you come and join us. And really, please do reach out. We value conversations and we value talking to people about what you're doing, and we value sharing. I've popped my email address in the chat box. It's quite a critical time. We're a couple of months, really 3-4 months away from launching our next year's programs. So this is one of the last chances I think that a lot of us have to really consider whether we've got everything in our programs that we'd like. And if there is any thoughts that we can share with you to add value, we would love to. And beyond that, have a wonderful day. Thank you, Josh, so much for joining us at this time of night. It's great to have you with us. And everyone, have a wonderful day. Be safe, be well, and take care of yourselves. We look forward to seeing you again. Goodbye for now.